we are interrupting regular programming right now to bring you a live press conference with Austin city leaders and their response to this severe winter storm and the devastating impact it has had to our community. It has started, so let's join them in progress.
Power sources and water infrastructure. It created unsafe roads and challenged our city's ability to provide the quality services that you are accustomed to. As challenging as the last several days have been, our community continues to come together. Today, we'd like to share a few critical updates as we make progress towards recovery. The disaster declaration for Austin is now extended to February 26th to ensure that we can continue to tap into every local, state, and federal resource available to help you through and recover from this crisis. Right now, public safety operations, police, fire, EMS are seeing call volumes return to normal levels. This is encouraging, but we know we still have a long way to go, especially with the road conditions. We'll have more on that in a few minutes. And I'd like to take a moment to update you on the issue that's top of mind, water. We're going to get to Austin Water for an update on the service restoration in a moment, but first I'd like to provide an update on water distribution efforts. Here's what we know right now. We are working with local and regional partners to set up safe, strategically located water distribution sites, and we anticipate being able to release initial details on the distribution operations this evening. The water sources are coming in a few different ways. We have small deliveries, which is often coming in small quantities, fewer than 20 pallets at a time. The priority for those is to get that water to hospitals, shelters, warming centers, and working with community partners to get water to vulnerable, critical need populations. We are also doing bulk water purchases, and the city purchased 1 million gallons of water. Trucks carrying that water coming from surrounding states are expected to arrive tonight and tomorrow. Each truck will have 19 pallets of water. And finally, FEMA will be arriving, or water from FEMA will be arriving, approximately 36 pallets from Fort Worth, and we'll work on a regular scheduled delivery of additional deliveries from FEMA. The real question that I know you're all asking is around distribution. And when it comes to distribution, the focus is on identifying the pickup sites that are safe for residents to reach them given our current road conditions. Ease of access for the public is also a priority, and sites will need to be set up around the city to minimize the amount of travel for residents who need water. When the sites come online, they will operate from sunup to sundown, and we will anticipate being able to provide 1 case of water per car. We're also working with community organizations such as churches and nonprofits to coordinate pickup and delivery of water to those who are most vulnerable, including seniors and those experiencing homelessness. The Emergency Operations Center continues to coordinate bulk water deliveries to hospitals and other medical facilities, including dialysis centers. And Austin Fire Department is supporting bulk water deliveries. And now on grocery stores, because finally emergency operations staff met with leaders from area grocery stores to get a status update on their store operations and how the city and regional partners could provide assistance that would make it easier for them to restock and reopen stores as soon as possible. So if you are able to purchase water, we urge you to do so in an effort to try and ensure we are prioritizing those that need it the most at these distribution sites. Please keep in mind that there will likely be purchase limits to these items, and we urge you to be patient with all staff working at these stores. And a reminder, grocery stores employees, who are also loved ones and neighbors, are working through this extreme weather condition and doing their best to help out our community. Don't forget to help us keep them safe. Wear a face covering, watch your distance, and wash your hands. Once again, we know water distribution is top of mind, and we will share all details around this as soon as it is available. These are indeed challenging times, and as your city manager, I am committed to restoring our community back to the city that we all love. We will fully recover from this. Homes and businesses that were still without power will receive power. Our city will regain full use of water. We will recover. However, this recovery and restoration process will take time. And now I'll turn things over to Austin Water Director Greg Mazaros for an update on progress restoring full water service to the area. Director?
Thank you, City Manager. So Austin Water's made good progress over the last 24 hours, continuing to recover our system. Our reservoirs are filling. We are establishing service in our central zone. Our central zone is the backbone of our system, the foundation by which we bring water out to our north and south pressure zones. And the central zone is improved considerably over the last 24 hours. And we are now pumping increased water into our other zones. We have also published maps and graphs on our website that are available to help customers see progress as we turn zones from red to yellow to green as we bring pressure back to the system. I anticipate through the weekend, the majority of our customers will see significant improvements in service with regards to the return of pressure. I do want to say a few words about that. We might sometimes think about service in terms of electric, where it's either off or on. Water can be a little different. Customers may go from no water pressure to low water pressure. They may see some discoloration in their water, and then it may ultimately firm and clear, and pressures will continue to rise. So this can be kind of a gradual improvement of service, not necessarily, all the way on or all the way off. We encourage customers, as they receive improved service, to continue to actively conserve water. Minimize water use to the essentials for your use. Don't try to catch up on all of your laundry or do all of your dishes, multiple showers. We really want to build our system up slowly. It's still very tender and fragile from this event. There are still a lot of unknowns. As we pressurize the system, we will see additional breaks that we didn't know about. We'll have to repair those. Some customers may receive some isolated service outages as we do that. But I think the overall good news is our reservoirs are filling. They're about a third full and continuing to improve. We expect that to accelerate through the weekend and return pressure to the bulk of our customers. We're going to continue to work after that to clear the system for potable use, for drinking water use. We think that'll follow very rapidly into next week. So things are really looking up, but we're not out of the woods yet. We still have a ways to go. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you very much, Director. And now, Austin Energy's General Manager.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Sargent, and I am the General Manager for Austin Energy. This morning, ERCOT ended their statewide energy emergency conditions for this event. Currently, what that means is that there's more energy supply, including reserves, to meet customer demand, and then some. However, that doesn't mean that our work is done. In fact, our hardest days for Austin Energy may still lie ahead of us and others as utilities across the state work diligently to restore every customer who has been impacted by this event. Unfortunately, here at home, the multiple icy storms we have experienced created challenging, difficult, and icy conditions. These conditions are slowing down our efforts to get everyone in Austin back online. We're still finding trees on top of power lines. There's ice on vegetation, power lines, and our equipment, which slows down the work. This process takes time and must be done carefully to ensure safety of our crews and customers. Full restoration may take several days. I want you to know that all available Austin Energy crews, along with additional contract crews that have been brought in, are working around the clock to safely restore power as quickly as possible. We've made progress in getting customers back online, and as of noon today, we have about 22,000 customers who remain without power. And for those customers, the frustration continues. Please know that we are doing everything possible to clean up the system and restore your service. So why are we here? I would encourage you to think about the electrical system as a tree with a trunk, large branches to smaller branches, and finally stems and leaves. The trunk is like the transmission system, and the branches are like the feeders, and the smaller branches like circuits, finally reaching out to the stems and leaves, which are the individual customers. As we had storm events that interrupted service, and then we received the emergency order from ERCOT to de-energize certain parts of the system, we no longer had all of our ability to see what was available and not. So as we got permission to begin restoring power, energizing these branches, we would find the hazards that exist. As we identified those hazards, we can remove them, but we're having to sectionalize into the smaller and smaller branches to get to the individual circuits where the problems are, and then work to restore each of those individually. This is very tedious and time-consuming. It's a manual process. People are on the ground identifying the hazards, working diligently to fix them, to remove them, and then to repair the system and be able to restore power down to each and every customer. I have to say that this has been one of the most challenging weeks for Austin. So many of you have been impacted first by the ice storm, the continued cold weather that then caused a statewide energy emergency, followed by more ice and storms. These factors have intensified the problems that we have experienced and created untenable circumstances for our customers and residents. This has been an extreme weather event. Please know that we will not stop until every customer service has been restored. Our crews are working hard. They are committed to getting your lights back on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we will go over to the Public Works Director.
Hello. This afternoon, I'm going to be reporting for both Public Works and Transportation departments on our mobility infrastructure. Beginning with Public Works, our street and bridge crews, as well as contractors, have been working throughout last night and into this morning to address critical streets around town. This includes clearing ice and snow and sanding our roadways and bridges. As of now, I can report that our crews have cleared more than 180 lane miles of our large priority streets, treated 28 bridges and elevated surfaces multiple times, responded and cleared a number of large trees and limbs that have fell across our roadways, as well as cleared centrally located crosswalks and sidewalks. We do want the community to remain vigilant, as there are still some icy conditions along some of our roadways as well as our pedestrian pathways. We will have crews remaining on standby through tonight to respond to these patchy conditions. As we look forward to our recovery, over the next coming days, we expect on our pavements to see more potholes as a consequence of the freezing precipitation. We ask that you please report these potholes and any other obstructions, such as downed trees in the roadway or sidewalks, using our Austin 311 app. Using the app will help us track these more easily, and it also helps reduce the call volume on our 311 operators. You can also dial 512-974-2000 for 311 support. As we expect our roadway conditions to improve starting tomorrow and throughout the weekend, we do ask you in the meantime, especially tonight, as we do expect another refreeze, to please limit your travel to only those necessary trips and stick to the larger arterials and major roadways. On behalf of our Austin Transportation Department and Director Robert Spiller, I have the following to report. Most all of our city's 1,000 traffic signals have been affected by power loss. Our traffic signal crews will be working throughout this weekend with the goal to restore most of our signal functions by Monday morning. They will be prioritizing our major intersections first. If you do encounter a signal that is still dark on flash, we ask that you treat them as four-way stops. Please also report them using the city's 311 app or call center and note the location of the outage so that we can get these scheduled. Meanwhile, again, we urge continued caution for cars as well as pedestrians and bicyclists on hills and curves and some of the shaded areas that may still have patches of ice through tomorrow, as well as our other roads that may be affected by tonight's expected refreeze. And be careful of our crews out there working in the roadways by lowering your speeds. Austin Transportation employees are also providing support and assisting with bottled water delivery, and as well as transporting our residents from shelters back to their homes as we come out of this freeze. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Director, and thank you everyone else for the updates. Now we're going to move into the Q&A portion with questions asked by the media, but we are going to prioritize those questions for Austin Energy first. And we will also do our best to answer as many of the questions as time allows. With that, I will now hand it off to our pool reporter, Christopher Neely from Community Impact, to ask questions.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for taking time to answer some questions today. So prioritizing the Austin Energy questions first. This one's from Talk 1370. Austin Energy has said it couldn't rotate outages during the ERCOT load shed because it ran out of circuits that did not contain critical loads. Is there a process, either as a normal course of business or after this event, to look at better subdividing circuits to provide more flexibility in the future?
Thank you. That's a good question, because when we plan for these circumstances of energy emergencies, and we do that in collaboration with ERCOT, we plan for a certain number of circuits. And then on top of that, we had an additional 200 circuits to be able to meet unexpected conditions. These conditions for this storm event way exceeded that. And the rate at which ERCOT found itself going into this energy emergency happened so quickly that we not only maxed out the circuits that we had initially available for rotation, it took that 200 additional circuits within a matter of minutes. And so that's how we ended up in that situation. Our team is already looking at how do we improve this? What do we do differently? What have we learned from this? What does the data tell us? How are we able to take these circuits and further sectionalize them so that we can create a system that has greater flexibility and will allow for that? So certainly, we want to take every opportunity from this, improve what we can do, learn from it, and make those enhancements. And we're committed to doing that.
Okay, thanks. This question is from the Austin American Statesman, and this is for Austin Energy and Austin Water. Should people be concerned that their power will go out again tonight as temperatures will be freezing again? And for residents who have shut their water off, when can they turn it back on? And should they wait until Saturday as temperatures are going to be freezing again tonight?
So we're looking at that weather, and we are also looking at what is happening with regard to the ERCOT system. ERCOT is also looking at the weather, and taking that into account, they have removed these energy emergency situation or conditions. So they're not having us see any alerts at this time like they have for the last several days. So at this point, with having no further events that create additional disruptions, we project that the power will be able to stay on, but know that we still have people without power. And we're really focused on getting that power turned back on for those customers. So we'll continue to watch it. But I think with these continued weather conditions, it makes sense for people to do everything they can to be prepared. And I'll turn it over to Greg for the second part of that question.
So I think customers should feel free to turn their water off and on as conditions warrant. during the day, like today, it was above freezing. If a customer is in a zone where they have water, even if it's low water service, being able to fill some pots for boiling or flush toilets is an important level of service. They could certainly turn on their water and have that level of service. And then if they're worried about freezing conditions at night, turn the water back off at their property overnight and then repeat that cycle. So I don't see any harm in terms of, multiple turn-offs or turn-ons at your property level to kind of manage your risk.
All right, thanks. This one is from Austonia, and this is also another Austin Energy, Austin Water question. What is being done to address the possible utility bill spike, utility bill price hikes due to scarcity pricing or burst pipes?
So we're continuing to work through the situation. As you know, we still have customers out, and that's our primary focus right now. Of course, we have to watch where we are from a financial position. Our team is looking at that. I do not have enough information to be able to determine, to calculate or project any type of financial impact and resulting rate impact at this time. So that is information that will be forthcoming, but I think it's premature to try to speculate on that, and I would hate to provide false information or incorrect information. So we need to stay focused. This is still an emergency for Austin Energy. We have our incident command that is still stood up. This is really a dangerous situation for our crews. As they are working to isolate these hazards on the system, to clear them and restore every customer, I can't overemphasize the need for a focus, a laser focus on ensuring that no one is injured. Director Mazzaro's talked about water and that, it's not on or off, and that if it's on, it might continue to run and drain, but you know what? It's not going to impact someone's life. If electricity stays on, if there's a path for that electricity to flow, and a line worker were to come in contact with that, it would kill them. So we're going to do this as safely as we can. We're going to take the time necessary to make sure that we don't injure any of our crews, and we certainly don't injure any of our customers. It's really that important.
For Austin Water, we've had discussions today with the city manager. He's given direction to me to come up with a menu of options on how we can provide customers relief and assistance to repair private plumbing issues from burst pipes, how we might help them with bill issues. Certainly, Austin Water doesn't want to reap any financial benefit at all from this ice storm, and we're going to do all that we possibly can, working with the manager and the council, to provide customers adequate financial relief and assistance to recover with private plumbing issues at their homes and businesses. And I don't know if the manager would have any more thoughts on that.
Just a word on, it's not just what we can do locally, but what assistance that we are tapping into both at the state and federal level. And so, talking to our colleagues across the state of Texas as we request additional assistance from the federal government to help our residents, our customers, our Austinites recover from this. And so we will look at every opportunity that we can to provide assistance.
This question is from KTBC. Officials from ERCOT said the state power grid has moved out of emergency operations, meaning customers no longer need to conserve energy, though it's only been a day or so since millions were without power. Should people in Austin still conserve as much as possible, even if they have power?
I would recommend that customers continue to conserve energy. Right now, I explained in my comments that ERCOT moving out of this situation for energy emergency means that the supply is greater than the demand that customers currently have. And as long as that remains so, and there's surplus, a margin, if you will, that gives a buffer then they can remain in normal conditions. One of the things I don't think anybody's talking about is there are still a large number of customers that have not been energized yet. So their demand is not being accounted for. So to help us ensure that we can restore power to all of our customers, that will not create a significant amount of additional demand that then takes away from that margin that's there, I would ask customers, as we continue to work through this, to please continue to conserve.
All right, and this question from Co-op Radio relates to some of the people still without power. What is being done to restore power to the 1,400 plus customers in the large area along Lake Austin and up to Cat Mountain? They've been without power for 4 straight days.
So I explained about the situation that we have right now. We have outages in the system, and we have outages that have occurred inside of larger outages. So as we're working down the system, that feeder, that branch of the tree, if you will, we are energizing parts of that, and that will help us to identify those other outages. It takes time because at this point, it's not an automated process. It's manual. People are physically walking down the system to find where these individual hazards are so that we can get the crews there with the right equipment to remove those hazards and then to continue energizing and sectionalizing the parts of the circuit to get down to every individual household or customer. It takes time.
All right, this question is from us at Community Impact. Austin Water Director Greg Mazzaro said yesterday, this could be a multi-day water outage, but there was really no clarity as to whether that means 2 days, a week, or multiple weeks. Director Mazzaro, as head of the water utility, what is your recommendation to the people and families of Austin without water? Should they try to stick this out for a couple of days, or if they can, should they leave and try to get to a place with water until this is fixed?
Well, a few thoughts there. I can't speak for every individual. There's some individual choice, but we are seeing markedly improved conditions. Our central pressure district is stable so far and holding good pressure and building. We're using that to pump out to the other districts. My opinion, in talking with our engineers and systems planner, and it's an opinion, is that the system is going to see significant improvement over the weekend. And a large majority of our customers are going to have pressure return to their homes. I hope that helps guide them in some decision making. There'll always be some individual pockets where there may be a main break or some other issue that we have to work on specifically for that area. We don't know all those yet. As the pressure returns to systems, we'll have staff out there repairing and canvassing and correcting those. But I do see significant improvement over the next 48 hours in terms of overall pressure to our system. And watch our maps. Every 12 hours at a minimum, we're going to be publishing new maps and new graphs that show as conditions are turning from red to yellow to green, as they can see the storage levels in our reservoirs rising, as that's influencing service levels. We know for certain that we are producing more water than is being used right now, and that just shows the value of the conservation that is occurring in the community. The more that happens, the faster the system recovers. And so I think we're really on a good path, and this weekend into Monday, we're going to see substantial improvement.
Dr. Mazzaros, if you wouldn't mind just describing those maps that you distributed a little bit more, is there any nuance that the public can be thinking about when they do look at whether there's water shortages or stoppage?
Yes, so we characterize maps in terms of our pressure zones, and it's a citywide map, and it shows pressure zones, and they're colored by pressure zones that are experiencing water outages and pressure zones that are experiencing low pressure. And then ultimately, as pressure zones stabilize, it would go to green, full pressure. So there are nuances to that. If you're in a zone that says outages, it does not mean that every customer is necessarily out of water. A lot of them may be. I live in one of those zones where there's significant outages, and I have significantly reduced service, but I still have enough water to fill a pot or flush a toilet. So it can vary, and the recovery of that can vary. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, you can see pressure go from 0. You might have low pressure for a day. It might get a little better. It could even get a little worse and then get better. So this can be a little bit of an up and down process. We also have some graphs that show how much water we're producing, how much water the system is using. They're pretty straightforward. They're just simple graphs that you can see the difference. We have a graph that shows all of our reservoir storage. We have over 100 million gallons of storage in our reservoirs. Reservoirs are tanks, elevated tanks, storage tanks. And you can see that graph, and as that climbs every 12 hours and where we are on a scale of empty to full. And I think that can give you some guidance into how soon and how fast the system is recovering. So go to our website and you'll see those maps and graphs and data. And we plan on enhancing that throughout today and into the weekend to give you more guidance on how we're recovering on the system. But I'm cautiously optimistic that we're on the right path, and we're going to see a positive recovery hour after hour. Literally every hour, it's getting better.
Okay, Sun Radio says, first, thank you all for your good work. What is the relationship between the Fed and state in terms of getting resources to Austin? Was the National or State Guard ever requested to help? It seems like with the headquarters being at Camp Mabry, they could have provided some relief.
So as we know, this was a statewide impact, and it wasn't even just the state of Texas. It impacted a lot of our country. And so these are issues that have been addressed by making requests at the state level, and then obviously the state making a federal request. Those are in progress, and I know that our president even today indicated that he would be signing that declaration of a disaster. So we continue to work and look for every resource that is made available at the time.
Okay, the Austin Black Business Journal and Community News says, we service more than 15,000 African Americans all over Austin, and most have been without electricity and water for 3 days or more. When and where can they get clean water to drink? And is there a map of water availability for residences and complexes similar to the one Austin Energy provides?
So we continue to refine the map plan for water. We hope to have that out to the public later today. And so we will be clear about where you can go pick up water if needed. We know that our community is being impacted in so many ways, and we are seeing how the disproportionate impacts are really affecting different communities in different ways. And so we are using that through an equity lens on scoping how we would be moving these resources appropriately within our community. So if you haven't received assistance from your neighbors or from local churches or nonprofit organizations, again, this is neighbors helping neighbors, community groups helping community groups. We're all trying to do everything we can, but the city and Travis County, we are setting up these distribution centers that will be up very soon.
Okay, this one's from KUT. Is the water system partitioned like the city's electric grid? Why are some parts of town with water pressure and others with none?
Petition's not the right word, but it is built on pressure zones. And pressure zones really correspond to elevations. As you live at higher elevations in Austin, you're at different pressure zones. And we build water out from the pressure zones. Water in our reservoirs in the central system is often used to then fill reservoirs in the next pressure zone, and so on and so forth. It's not fully exactly like that, but that's the overall concept. So as we have to start with the central zone as the backbone of the system, and the central zone is not just the central city, the downtown area. It's a vast area that stretches well east of Interstate 35, and north and south areas. It is the backbone of the system and the distribution. And from there, we pump water out to our other reservoirs, and that's how we fill the system. So that's how it naturally kind of builds out and ultimately recovers throughout our entire system. But our system is all looped. We have 3 major drinking water plants. They support the entire system. The transmission system and reservoirs all work as an integrated whole to support the system across all of our city.
From the Austin American Statesman, what is the status of the what is the status of water availability at local hospitals?
Hospitals are our number one priority to bring into service as we work to fill reservoirs and extend service and return pressure. Our first lens is how can we get healthcare providers up and running. So over the last 24 hours, the large hospital complexes in the central part of the city have all seen a water service return. We're continuing to extend that out. We're working on water service to Dale Children's Hospital. As a matter of fact, they may even be in service already. And we have a list of all the other hospital and healthcare providers. And as we're building out this improved system over the next 48 hours, we'll be targeting those coming up first. Again, very hopeful that throughout the weekend, many of those hospitals will see a return to water service. We still have to work through lifting the boil water notice. You know, the first phase is getting water to your home, business, or hospital. The second phase is ultimately clearing that water for drinking, and that'll happen into next week. But getting these hospitals back into service is happening very rapidly. And in addition to service to the hospitals through our system, we're working, some of the hospitals have been securing water trucks. We have been assisting with filling those water trucks at our drinking water plants as a way for them to get additional water support. Also, as the manager discussed, additional bottled water resources to assist these facilities. So those are some of the activities that are underway.
Yes, and additionally, the Public Works and Austin Transportation Department started receiving requests early this morning to start delivering water to those hospital and critical care facilities.
Okay, this one's from the Austin Chronicle. How many people living on the street without shelter have the city and county moved to a motel since Sunday? How many to cold weather shelters, and how many were contacted?
It's a great question. I think at our peak yesterday, or the night before last, we had about 1,500 people sheltered across the 4 city-run shelters, and that was a mix of people experiencing homelessness and those without power. But we don't have a breakdown among those groups. And that number does not include the churches that have stepped up, shelters set up by the Austin Disaster Relief Network and supported by other community groups. I do know that a public safety task force was established with police, fire, and EMS, who went to more than 45 encampments to offer rides to shelters. And the homeless texting alert system was activated that went to over 550 people experiencing homelessness with information about cold weather, signs of hypothermia, fire safety, and then information about the shelter. The city didn't provide any hotel vouchers during this response. Community partners were better poised to do that as they can accept cash donations.
Okay, from KVUE, Travis County Judge Andy Brown said there are about 1 million gallons of drinking water headed to Austin, and FEMA is bringing 2 truckloads. Is this enough water to get us through the crisis, and is more drinking water besides what was listed headed this way? And if so, how much? Are there any coming by flight?
Yes, we have gotten the confirmation that a FEMA plane is arriving, if it hasn't already, in the coming hours. And so that is another course. We'll try to provide the total amount that is arriving today, and then as we learn more about the needs that are out there, additional resources that will be available. But absolutely, the short answer to your question is no, that's not enough, and we will continue to update the public on what is coming into our community.
Okay, from KXAN, how much water has been lost during this storm due to water line breaks, and how soon will that be reflected in ratepayers' bills?
Well, any water lost through the public system, main breaks and leaks, is not transferred to customer monthly bills. And the water loss is substantial. There were significant leaks and breaks on the public side, and more to uncover and repair. Customers that experience breaks and burst pipes on their private property, as we mentioned in our earlier conversation, we are working very closely with the city manager to make a series of recommendations with the council to provide customers relief from having to pay additional for leaks and other hardships they encourage during this event. And so I want to repeat again, Austin Water does not want to and will not profit from any hardships or increased water that happened as a result of this catastrophe.
CBS Austin asks, what are the guidelines as we get more water? There will likely be a big demand as people shower, do laundry, wash dishes, etc.
Well, our guidelines are always be cautious. We understand that water is essential and that you need to flush toilets, you need to cook with it, that you need to do some cleaning with it. We would say, the system is a little tender, so just start off slow as you have water or as you get water. Just kind of be cautious. And if everyone uses a reasonable amount of water, everything's going to be fine. And that goes for all of our businesses. We've been talking to all of our customers, non-residential customers, be very cautious with your water use. Don't start up processes immediately. Let us get through the next couple of days and rebuild the system pressures and fix leaks that we're seeing. So as long as people do that, and they don't have to do it in a hardship where you don't drink water to stay hydrated, where you're living in unsafe conditions. We're not recommending that, but just manage your water in a reasonable way, and good things will happen.
All right, from Univision, for residents that have burst pipes, who can they call to report leaks, or where can they find references or websites that explain where they can shut water off?
Well, if you go to the Austin Water website, we have resource material that shows you how to turn off water at your house, at your property line. Even if you Google and go to YouTube, there are all kinds of videos about how to do that. They're not necessarily Austin Water videos, but there are many, many resources for how to do that. Often friends and neighbors are very skilled in that, and you can reach out to those folks and to help you in how to do that. You can contact Austin Water. Quite frankly, our dispatch lines that normally take calls for emergencies are overwhelmed. In normal operations, we get 20 calls a day, and now we're getting 5,000. And so I think, a better way to often communicate is to go to our website. We have a form that you can fill out and give us some information. And we're doing some callbacks on those kind of forms. It also, gives us more insights into, where the system is having some problems. We'll be working, as I mentioned in the introduction, on other resources to help customers repair their systems. I think one of the challenges is the number of plumbers that are required to fix things is there's a limited amount, and there's a lot of need. I know that the city and the state and other are working on how to enhance resources for repairs and to assist the community with that. And I think there'll be more information on that coming out. So that's some guidance on that.
Okay, without Ms. Sargent on the call anymore, I don't see her on the call. This question I think is probably for City Manager Cronk and Director Mazzaros. The City of Austin has an official position related to global warming. The mayor traveled to Paris and Mexico City to represent Austin in climate conversations. scolding the Trump administration for leaving the Paris Accord. With thousands of homes without power or water, why should citizens not feel like that is all political theater instead of fortifying the infrastructure? Where was the smart grid and water technology during this crisis? Are there any unspent bond dollars for such technology? And that question is from Sun Radio.
Well, I may start there. Climate change is a profound risk, and I think you're seeing it all across the board with weather extremes. It's happening in the summer with increased droughts and risk of water shortages from droughts. It's happening with flooding and excessive rains and upset to water quality and natural systems. And now it's happening with intense polar vortexes coming down deeper and more persistent into the south. And we have to prepare for those. We have to prepare to be better in emergencies. There's going to be more emergencies, and we have to prepare to be better in terms of how individually we prepare for those, how we communicate and prepare for those as a community. Technology is helping. I'll give you an example. So we have started an advanced meter infrastructure project where every home will have a meter and they can see their water use hour to hour. That will give us much more insights into how customers are being affected. Right now, we can't tell from a water meter if your home has a leak, how much water you are using, if you have no water flowing through your meter. We don't know. A few years from now, we'll have that knowledge for every single home and business in Austin, and we can use that to better shape responses to emergencies, how we prepare for emergencies, how we communicate to customers through these new technologies. So it takes time and effort to do that. Replacing 250,000 meters at a cost of $100 million is a very large undertaking, and it takes time. But those are the things that we need to do, and take ownership of that as a community. The public utility can't solve it all. Customers are going to have to be more resilient on themselves. They're going to have to know how to turn off the water in front of their house. They may have never thought of that in the last 50 years. They're going to have to think about that in the future. They may need to store some bottled water at their houses in larger volumes in case there's interruptions. You know, we live in a world with higher risk, and we have to adapt our behaviors to that.
And I'll just add, one of the things that attracted me to Austin, I moved here a couple of years ago to take this job, was how our community really leaned into making sure that we were addressing the climate emergency that we're under. We know that we have to be more resilient. I've seen incredible leadership from our mayor and council to make sure that we are doing everything that we can as a city, and that we're supporting our community to addressing climate change. And so I think we can continue to look for other ways to address it. I know that we will always be working on our own systems, our own infrastructure, to make sure that we are more resilient in the future. We've seen plans, our Water Forward plan from Director Mazzaros and his team, which was really a community-led effort. And that is one example of so many across our entire enterprise. So this is something that is not going away and will only become more intense over the years. And this community is poised to address it head on, unlike any other city in the country.
All right, from the Austin Black Business Journal and Community News, Black and minority communities have not been able to work in a week. Will there be any financial assistance for rent or utilities?
I'll start, and then I think we just emphasizing that we are going to look at every opportunity to provide assistance for our community, especially those that have been hit hardest by this event. We have said over and over, in the middle of a pandemic, we're hit by both a water and electric crisis in the middle of a winter storm that has just crippled our entire state. But some communities have been hit harder than others, and we recognize that, and we will be doing everything we can to support them using both city resources, state resources, and federal resources.
Okay, just a few more questions left. From KUT, will the city be able to help restaurants, breweries, and other businesses that are feeding and hydrating the community, especially in a year when they were already struggling?
I was proud of our city council for initiating programs to provide additional assistance for restaurants during a pandemic. I know that everyone is suffering so much in this incredibly challenging year that we've had. I'll just repeat that we will explore every option to provide assistance. And I just want to pause and appreciate the way in which some of these restaurants and breweries and all community organizations have really done whatever they can to help each other out. And so thank you. We know that it's appreciated. We know that this is a community response to a crisis. And I have seen incredible efforts across our community, and we hope to make sure that there are assistance if it's possible.
From KVUE, how are the reservoirs looking today, and how long do you predict it will take to fill them? Is the melting ice helping this process?
So no, the melting ice is not helping us. Ice and rain is really flowing into streams and the rivers. Our reservoirs are all enclosed structures that only hold potable or hold drinking water. So we don't allow the mixture of like that kind of a raw water into those systems. So this is all coming from our treatment plants, filling up those reservoirs. Reservoirs are filling slow but steady. At the height of the emergency, the bulk of our reservoirs were drained almost to no storage. They normally hold 100 million gallons. I think I looked just a little before this session, and we were up to about over a third of recovery. So we're up, 35, 40 million gallon range, and that should steadily climb into the weekend, and on a positive track there.
Okay, this from Co-op Radio. The city has been advising residents not to drip faucets. Last night was a hard freeze. How cold does it have to get before the city changes its advice?
Well, normally we would and have encouraged faucet dripping, but with the water emergency and the persistent period of time that we've been in with these low temperature ranges, we estimate that 80, 100 million gallons of water may have flowed out just through dripping of faucets. And so it's not an option that we're recommending now until we can recover from this system. We really would encourage customers to minimize that and more manage turning off their water at the curb and draining their water system, opening faucets before a freeze. Although I think we're out of the worst risk. The weather forecast is indicating that we're likely to be above freezing or just tiny bit below for the foreseeable forecast periods. And so I think we're out of that risk period, and customers should not be worried about that, I think, going forward as much.
All right, this is our final question from the Austin American-Statesman. When do you expect the boil water notice to end?
Well, the actual lifting of the boil water notice is a process. It isn't a process of pressure. It's a process of testing, sampling water and testing it at our lab. And as we stabilize pressures, we will begin that process of sampling. We're also working with state regulatory agencies to clear portions of our system. Instead of everything coming out of the boil water notice at the same time, we might be in a position to be able to just take pieces of our system, smaller parts, and clear it for potable use, which would allow us to allow hospitals and others to start up for drinking water use faster. And so we're hopeful that beginning next week, those processes will start to take place and we'll lift out of that. Obviously, it's much better to have water that you can boil and use than not have the water at all. So that's our first goal is just to get water service to everybody, and then from there we'll be working to lift the boil water notice. And again, I think this is all going to come together into early next week.
Thank you very much, Christopher from for being our poll reporter today. And with that, I will hand it over to City Manager Cronk for some closing comments.
Thank you, and I hope these updates have been helpful. Again, I know that there's information that we continue to push out, and as we learn more, we will get that to you as soon as we can. We are not through this event yet. We do have customers and residents that are still suffering immensely from this event. We will continue to do everything we can to both restore power and water to each one of our residents here in Austin. We know this has been hard. We apologize for what we have put everyone through. We will continue to do everything we can to make this better. I want to thank you for your patience and appreciation for all the staff that have been working around the clock to mitigate the effects of this event. Thank you.
And we have been listening to city leaders give an update about what they're doing about the ongoing water and power issues. Wanted to give you a few main takeaways from that. Emergency call volume, well, that is returning to normal. And there is water distribution sites being set up all around the city to minimize travel for residents. The city will release a list of the sites tonight, expected tonight. City also made some bulk water purchases, and those pallets should arrive here in Austin tonight or tomorrow. We are also expecting FEMA to send some help. They are also sending some water with us. The city is working with community groups, churches, to get that water to our most vulnerable populations, like our seniors. Now, Austin Water Director Greg Mazzaros has said the water outage is a multi-day event. Well, today, he said they are making good progress, reporting that a third of reservoirs are now full. He said they are producing more water now, right? So we can expect significant improvements this weekend. He also said the loss of water through these leaks that we're seeing all around the city will not be transferred to customers, so we will not end up paying for those leaks, but he couldn't say whether or not our water bills will increase. It's just too early to tell. He is warning residents that we should still conserve water. Now, conservation is also the message from Austin Energy as 22,000 customers remain without power. Full restoration will take several days. General Manager Jackie Sargent warned that the hardest days, however, may lie ahead. She could not answer just how our utility bills will be affected by the outages, as many are expecting to see an increase in their bills. So stay tuned for that. Now, from the head of the Public Works Department, Richard Mendoza, he is warning that these storms have produced many potholes and downed trees across the city. I've seen that. He said crews are working on them, but he wants drivers to report any issues, any road damage they see using the 311 app. The power outages we're hearing from the Austin Transportation Department also affected some 1,000 traffic signals. So city officials are asking all of us, please treat these as four-way stops. They hope to have them repaired by this Monday. All right, now that's the latest coming from the city of Austin. We're also waiting to hear from Governor Greg Abbott here in just a couple of minutes on what the state is doing to help Texans in need. So that is expected to start here in a few minutes. We're going to send it back to programming for until then, and we'll see you when that press conference starts.
Free auto insurance quote today.